The Second World War witnessed unimaginable devastation and loss of life. The Soviet Union bore a significant brunt of this devastation, with an estimated 27 million lives lost in the fight against Nazi Germany. This monumental sacrifice was instrumental in securing the Allied victory. Yet even before the ashes of war had settled, the seeds of a new conflict were sown: the Cold War. The West, despite benefiting from the Soviet Union's sacrifices, quickly turned its back on its wartime ally. This rapid shift in relations raises a crucial question. Was the Cold War truly an ideological battle against communism, or were there deeper, more strategic motivations at play? The Soviet Union emerged from the war battered but not broken. Its vast territory, rich in natural resources, and its newly asserted independence presented a challenge to the established world order. The West, particularly the United States, sought to maintain its global dominance and saw the Soviet Union's growing influence as a threat to its interests. This fundamental clash of interests, fueled by a desire for control and access to resources, formed the bedrock of the West's enduring animosity towards Russia. The Cold War narrative often portrays the conflict as a battle of ideologies, with communism pitted against democracy. While ideological differences undoubtedly played a role, the deeper conflict stemmed from Russia's unwavering pursuit of independence and the West's determination to maintain its global hegemony. The Soviet Union, endowed with vast reserves of oil, gas, minerals, and fertile land, represented both a potential competitor and a tempting prize. Western economies, heavily reliant on access to these resources, viewed the Soviet Union's control over them as a threat. Moreover, the Soviet Union's success in charting its own course, independent of Western influence, challenged the prevailing notion of a unipolar world order. This defiance of Western hegemony, coupled with its control over vital resources, fueled a deep-seated resentment that continues to shape Western policies towards Russia today. Throughout history, the West has consistently sought to demonize Russian leaders, painting them as ruthless dictators and threats to global peace. From Stalin to Putin, the narrative remains remarkably consistent. These leaders are portrayed as aggressive, expansionist, and inherently untrustworthy. This demonization serves a dual purpose. First, it creates a justification for Western intervention in the region, framing it as a noble effort to liberate the Russian people from their oppressive rulers. Second, it deflects attention from the West's own geopolitical ambitions, casting Russia as the aggressor and the West as the defender of freedom and democracy. This narrative ignores the complex realities within Russia, including the domestic support enjoyed by many of these leaders. It also overlooks the West's role in exacerbating tensions, often through its support of regime change operations and its expansionist policies through NATO. Section 4. Broken Promises, the West's Unkept Word. The fall of the Soviet Union in 1991 presented a unique opportunity for a reset in relations between Russia and the West. Hopes ran high for a new era of cooperation and partnership. However, these hopes were soon dashed as the West reneged on its promises of friendship and collaboration. NATO, originally established as a defensive alliance against the Soviet Union, expanded eastward, encroaching on Russia's borders and breaking assurances given to Moscow. This expansion, viewed by Russia as a betrayal and a direct threat to its security, signaled the West's continued desire to contain and control Russia even in the absence of the Soviet threat. Furthermore, the West's economic policies towards Russia in the 1990s, often described as shock therapy, led to widespread economic hardship and social upheaval. This further fueled resentment towards the West, reinforcing the belief that the West was more interested in exploiting Russia's weaknesses than in building a genuine partnership. Section 5. Points of contention from Chechnya to Crimea. The post-Cold War era has been marked by a series of conflicts and crises that have further strained relations between Russia and the West. From the Chechen wars to the conflicts in Kosovo, Syria, and Ukraine, these events highlight the fundamental clash of interests and the West's continued attempts to dictate outcomes in Russia's backyard. The Chechen wars, for instance, saw Russia's attempts to quell a separatist movement met with Western criticism and accusations of human rights abuses. The Kosovo War, on the other hand, saw the West intervening militarily in a sovereign nation, setting a precedent that Russia viewed as hypocritical and dangerous. The Syrian civil war and the annexation of Crimea further exemplified this dynamic, with the West and Russia supporting opposing sides and accusing each other of violating international law and fueling instability. Section 6. Shifting narratives from government to people. In recent years, the Western media's portrayal of Russia has shifted from a focus on the Russian government to a broader demonization of the Russian people. This shift is evident in the increasing use of the term Russophobia, which reflects a growing climate of prejudice and discrimination against Russians and Russian culture. This Russophobia manifests itself in various ways, from the blacklisting of Russian artists and athletes to the banning of Russian media outlets and the general portrayal of Russian citizens as brainwashed or complicit in the actions of their government. This blurring of lines between the Russian government and its people is deeply concerning. It fosters a climate of fear and suspicion, making genuine dialogue and understanding nearly impossible. Furthermore, it creates a self-fulfilling prophecy, pushing Russia and the West further apart and making conflict more likely. Section 7. A pattern of control, a legacy of resistance. The West's animosity towards Russia is not a recent phenomenon, nor is it solely rooted in ideological differences. It is a product of a long history of competition, mistrust, and a fundamental clash of interests. Russia's vast territory, its abundant natural resources, and its unwavering pursuit of independence have consistently challenged the West's desire for global dominance. From the Cold War to the present day, the West has sought to contain Russia, to control its resources, and to dictate its place in the world order. Russia, however, has consistently resisted these attempts, defending its sovereignty and pursuing its own interests, even in the face of immense pressure and isolation. Understanding this historical context is crucial to comprehending the current state of relations between Russia and the West. It is a relationship burdened by a legacy of mistrust, fueled by a competition for power and influence, and complicated by a fundamental clash of visions for the future world order. Until this underlying dynamic is addressed, the cycle of confrontation and animosity is likely to continue.